Hey, what's up, guys? So, with the new release of the historic and uh, I guess explorer um, combo packs, I guess card packs, analogies or anthologies, I think. Um, yeah, I think this deck is finally in a state where it can, uh, I guess you can say, be um, in its full power state, I guess. Because what we were missing was a good board wipe, and that really sucked when we had to play subpar board wipes that give our opponents advantage, even though we wiped them, and or it could have been countered. But now with the release of it, Supreme Verdict, I think this deck has finally reached the point where it's been very difficult for other people to beat. It's basically finally got like everything it needs to function. Now we need probably better counter spells, but I think this is what we have. This is the best. This is the best of what we have in terms of like Pioneer, Explorer, counter spells. And so I made a few changes to the deck. Took some cards out, added some cards in. Wanted to try going a slightly different variant of the deck. So what I'm talking about is um, this deck plays less tapped out cards, so cards that would force me to tap out on my turn. So I'm playing just, I guess, more instant speed stuff. So kind of kind of help with keeping my mana open and playing more of a traditional, um, I guess, traditional blue white control idea. So let's take a look at it and kind of see what cards I've added and what cards I've taken out. I don't quite remember every single card I've taken out, but I have updated the deck quite extensively since then. I've been playing on and off, and been liking this build even a lot better than the last previous build. So I've been kind of liking Sensor actually. I always had a hate-love relationship with this card and Jawari, but I definitely like Sensor a lot better than Jawari. So Sensor helps to combat stuff in the early game, definitely, and in the late game, you just kind of cycle it. Or if you're stuck on lands, you're not getting your land drops, you can try to cycle the Sensor to try to draw into your land drops. So that's what I've been kind of liking about Sensor in this 80 card build. It's kind of helping the consistency of the deck a little bit by giving us a turn two counter spell, while also potentially being a cantrip to kind of hopefully draw us a card that we need. So even though we're playing 80 cards, we're playing a lot of cantrips and a lot of cycling cards to try to thin our deck down, kind of draw our threats, and hopefully get consistent land drops, which this deck needs in order to survive. So I down Portable Hole because Portable Hole is great, like especially against like aggro matchups and stuff, but it's kind of like meh against some other stuff. And so while Portable Hole is great, I kind of I kind of hate dead drawing this card. So I cut it down to two. I think two is fine. I don't really need more than two. March you could probably cut down to three, but I've liked four Marches. It's gotten some pretty good value killing tokens and stuff like that, and other creatures that when I have like a lot of mana open and I'm not doing anything with my mana, really good value there. I still like the Faithful Absence. You could cut this down to two, but I still like three, namely because this deck has a very tough time dealing with Planeswalkers once they resolve. Your only real way to kind of get rid of Planeswalker, and I've made mention of this a lot, is that you need to run them over, or um, or somehow use your Big Teferi, because you have no other way of removing a Planeswalker otherwise, because March doesn't kill it. There's no two mana Planeswalker in um, an Explorer or Pioneer that I can think of that's relevant. So once a Planeswalker comes down, like if you're playing against a mirror match or something like that, it becomes almost impossible to remove. So triple faithful for that particular purpose. I don't really use it to kill big or to kill creatures unless I really need to. But yeah, it does give our opponent a clue token, so just be careful about that. Um, so it's kind of a neg one there. So yeah, the other card is Force Sensor. Um, been working pretty well, and um, yeah, I kind of like it. So let's see if you have four omens, one search. I still like one search. Now I don't really see this card that often anymore. But once I do resolve this and it does flip, it does help win some late games. But I guess you can play something else. You could play like a Memory Deluge or like another Narset if you wanted to. But I kind of like having one Escanta here and there and to kind of combo with the Teferi. It's just an option, but it's not the strongest option. It's kind of a slow option because you do have to tap out. So and if you have nothing else to do, then you can play it. But it is a little slow. But it's two manas. It's whatever. The always Vito's the best non-creature counter spell, so um, might as well play two in the main. Now I cut down on Narset namely because I wanted to not tap out as much, namely because I want to keep Censor up, Absorb up and stuff like that. Now you can play Saw It Coming. I think that's another popular option of counterspell to play. I might as well craft four of them. I saw it coming is another popular one. Um, just because you can foretold it on turn two, and then cast it again for cheaper. But I've been just sticking with the four absorbed honestly, and it's been working okay. Namely because it gains me life, which this deck kind of doesn't have any way of gaining life. So keeping me in the game, so absorb kind of helps there. Not the best counter spell, but it's not the worst either. So um, yeah, your pick of three mana counter spells. There's quite a few of them, but I think absorb and salt coming is probably going to be the best choices. Um, yeah. From there, we got our win condition for Emperors. Memory Deluge, you can arguably play just two Deluge and play the other popular one I think is Future or something. Um, it's a four mana four toad. No, let me just type in four two. If I can spell four toad, sorry. Uh, oh, I guess I'm misspelling four toad. Give me a second. Just, do I not know how to spell four toad? I guess I don't. Foretell. Sorry, that was four toad. So, oh, sorry, this card here. Behold the Multiverse. So that's the other popular draw card. It's great because you can play it on turn two and just draw two whenever you need to if you're not doing anything else with your mana. Cheap alternative to Memory Deluge. I only like Deluge better for the late game, and casting it for seven. To, real late game. So I like this as a late game card, and it digs for it digs deeper. So consistency wise, I think Deluge is better. But in terms of like just pure value and um, ease of use, Behold is not a bad choice either. And then we have the three verdict. I don't think you need more than three because you can sometimes dead draw this card, but we do have farewell also. So I don't want to double up on too many board wipes. So I think three is a has been a pretty good number for me. And then Forza Fairy, and then Shark Typhoon and Farewell. Now you could cut down Farewell to like one copy if you wanted to. Maybe play another verdict uh, if you're so inclined, or you can cut down Shark Typhoon. Some people play two copies. I've liked four just to cycle it and make bodies on the board when I have a bunch of open mana. Um, also like it to play hard cast it sometimes. But most of the times it's just a like 1/1 or a 2/2 cycle a card, draw a card. And if you're getting land stuck, you can cycle it for two, just to try to draw your land. And I've done that before, and it's worked okay. Land base hasn't changed. I like the mana base I've created. It's pretty consistent. Gets me Gets the job done. Um, Now I could probably play like less Ventress, maybe less Arvindale here and play something else. But so far it's worked well. Very expensive mana base though. In terms of rare cards, I think you need at least like 30 rare cards or so, or 28 rare cards. So just be wary if you try to play this deck. I mentioned in my other videos, very expensive deck to play. Now Cyborg is where it gets a little interesting. I don't have a clear um, map or like idea of what to side in against certain decks, but this is just kind of like your run-of-the-mill Cyborg plan, and it should work against most matchups. You don't really have a bad matchup except for against like really big value decks, like Lotus Field and stuff like that. Um, but other than that, if you're playing against mid-range and other slow combo decks or other types of control deck, you generally have an advantage over them. So I didn't think I needed to have my cyborg narrowed down to kind of stop a certain strategy or anything like that. Um, Now, Grafdigger's Cage is sort of a maybe here. Um, Cage's got its good side and its bad side. Like it stops people from playing those creative decks and Coco, Collective Company, stuff like that. It stops like Bow Citadel, stops Graveyard, some Graveyard strategy. What it doesn't stop Grease Fang, and because Grease Fang brings back an artifact, which this does not stop. So that's the only downside of Grab Digger's Cage. If you have issues against Grease Fang, this card both doesn't help you. So I would not suggest siding this card in against Grease Fang. But against every other graveyard deck, it's a great card. Um, or any like deck that are planning on cheating stuff from their deck. Um, which if they're cheating stuff from their deck, this deck doesn't really have any way of like stopping that. So the Gravigar's Cage is in there for that reason. Sunset Rivalry, just anti-aggro. Two copies is fine. I find three kind of dead. If you draw multiple of them and your opponent's in a position where they're not really doing anything, this card just kind of sits in your hand and does nothing. So, yeah, just two copies is good. Another third veto here just to play against combo decks, mirror matches, stuff like that. Hearse here is a really good card. I don't know if it's good enough to in this particular deck because you don't really have any creatures accrue this thing besides maybe your shark token or your samurai tokens. But overall, it's one of the best graveyard hate cards you can get. The only other graveyard hate card I would maybe consider would be Soul Lantern or something like that. But I think this is great because it sits there and it just eats your opponent's graveyards, at least the cards that matters. And it's kind of hard to interact with. So probably one of the best graveyard hate cards. Now you could play Rest in Peace. Also, uh, I haven't really played Rest in Peace lately, namely because um, I wanted to get value off of my Deluge. Um, but Rest in Peace is not an option. I wanted to try Hearse, namely because I want it to be like a win con late game. I'm just, if this thing's like a 10-10, you hit someone for, you crew it and hit someone for 10 or 6 or, whatever power it's going to be at. That's good value there. Um, and then finally, just the other basic stuff, just color hate here. Cellar Wreckage. Now you could play a fourth copy of Verdict. But I felt that kind of unnecessary because we already have like 5 different versions of a sorcery removal. So I wanted something instant, in case they, Coco command during your end phase and they try to smack you. Verdict is a great card, but it's not an instant speed card. So, they smack you for lethal because they Coco you. It kind of sucks. So, Settle the Wreckage is kind of there just to help bridge that gap. Now it's only one copy, so I mean I don't know how useful it's gonna be, but yeah, we do play one Settle the Wreckage at the moment. And then last off, Dream Trawler. So I've seen people side this card in. I personally don't know what to use this card in against. I think it's to kind of outvalue other mid-range decks, stuff like that. When you're going to the late game, you play Dream Trawler. They can't really remove this thing. It's really hard to remove, and so you kind of just heal three, draw a card, heal three, draw a card, etc. Basically, it can be a late game win condition on its own. The more cards you draw, the bigger this thing gets, and you do play a couple cycling cards, Omen, it's a fairy. So you got a bunch of ways to draw and make this thing bigger during your turn. And that's pretty cool there. So I see people play either two or one copy. I'm trying out two just to see if it's good or not. And then finally, I have one horror or hall breaker horror, and this card is namely used against the mirror match. It's pretty good once it resolves. Your opponent can't get rid of this thing. You only play one because it is 7 mana. So by the time you get to 7 mana, hopefully you have cards in your hand to cycle or to counter spells to protect it, and it can kind of act as its own counter spell engine, stuff like that. So there you go. It's overall a great card against the mirror and stuff like that. The card that I did take out was Narset's Reversal. I decided just to take it out just because once in the blue moon I'll run into Thought Disruption, and I'm only playing one copy, so most likely I'm not gonna draw Narcissus Reversal when it matters. It's gonna just if they thought distort me, I'm just gonna lose anyways. So might as well just take my chances and say, um, you know, hopefully I can beat them by then, or at least resolve my planeswalkers. So if they do thought distortion me, I should have a board or something like that to kind of um, play against it. Um, you can also play like a Dream Trawler against the mirror. The Dream Trawler against the mirror is pretty good. If it resolves, there's almost no way of removing it because in the mirror, most of the time you take out your Supreme Verdicts. You don't keep Supreme Verdict in against the mirror, and all these cards don't really help to get rid of it because it does have hexproof as the activated ability. So um, yeah, like you can definitely play this against the mirror. Just have to be careful about counter spells, but obviously, you know, pretty good card there. But yeah, that's it. That's the update for the deck. Hopefully it's short and simple. Um, Not too much to talk about it. I mean, I'll go and upload some gameplays of it. Um, and yeah, pretty good control deck. I think I prefer this version over the 60 card version, even though you have way more wild draw variances. The fact that I feel like it's a lot stronger late game, more makes up for it. Yeah, it's a little bit weaker in the early game because you're not gonna always see what you want. But hopefully with the inclusion of Censor and a bunch of sharks and Omen of the Seas, you're gonna be able to kind of thin out your deck and hopefully draw your answers, draw your threats, stuff like that. So that's what I'm hoping to do with the deck here. But yeah, that's it. If you guys got any suggestions, comments, just put it down there. Otherwise, I'll see you guys next time.